Um, and that's why it's in the evening. So thank you again for making the time for joining us. I would like to introduce you all to Miss Allison Yee and also Miss Jennifer Alvarez. So I'll hand this over to Allison Yee. Allison, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. My name is Allison Yee. I am the Career Services Advisor. I'm located over at the Student Center. So I want to thank all of you for joining our workshop. Today's workshop will be regarding a guide of landing to your dream job, especially as graduation approaches.
Thank you, Allison. Jennifer?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Alvarez, and I am actually the Public Health Scholarship Program Project Manager. So if you are currently an award recipient, you'll be hearing a lot more of me. And if not, you will probably hear from me either way to see if there's any scholarships available. But other than that, I'm so excited that Allison was able to join us this night. And after today, if you have any other feedback as far as other career workshops or just things that you'd like to learn more about, let me know and I will connect to the right departments and resources on campus to come and host those workshops for all of us. I will be recording this and then editing the workshop so that if you want to reference anything that is mentioned by Allison, you can watch it and she'll definitely share her contact info with you later so that you can follow up with anything more specific to your case, your resume, your interviews that you have coming up. So I'll be here throughout. If you have any questions, I'll be supporting Allison, but thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, Jennifer. And by the way, Jennifer is an MPH alumna, right? She's the class of 2020, correct? Jennifer, if I'm not mistaken, 2020?
Yes, class of 2020 MPH.
Yes, that's true. All right, I'm gonna step back and mute myself and I'm gonna give the stage to Allison. Go ahead, Allison.
Thank you, Dr. Islam. Once again, welcome. Our workshop is going to be your guide to landing your dream job. Once again, I am Allison. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am the Career Services Advisor. On the screen, you will see my contact information. You'll see 2 emails on the screen. Feel free to schedule one-on-one advising sessions with me via Handshake or by sending an email. All right, before we get started, I want to share a little bit about myself. So I am a dog mom of 2 little Pomeranians. I have 3 sisters and I am the eldest. I am half Filipino, a quarter Peruvian, and a quarter Chinese. Some of the things I like to do, I like to go fishing. However, I am scared of large bodies of water because I cannot swim. And so at this time, I'm going to open up the floor to anybody who wants to introduce yourself. Perhaps you can share your name, a little bit about yourself, and or one of your career goals. And y'all can just chime in, no particular order, if you want.
I can go.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica. I know a lot of people here. My career goals, correct?
Yeah, just your name, something about yourself and or your career goal.
Okay, well, I currently work in like perinatal health services, so like with doula services. And I kind of want to stay in that realm, but more of a leadership role when I get more experience. So that's a little bit about me.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, if anybody else would like to share, you can just chime in.
And feel free to utilize the chat if maybe unmuting, and I can help read some of these responses out loud.
Okay, but if no one else would like to share, that is okay. We're going to continue on. Also, please let me know or let us know in the chat if I'm going too fast, if I'm going too slow, or if there's something you want me to repeat. And if you have any questions, you can either chime in or also put it in the chat. All right, so this is a brief overview of the points that we'll be hitting today. We're going to talk about reflection, what to do prior to looking for employment. We're going to talk about networking. We're going to touch and deconstruct the resume and the cover letter. We're going to go over interviewing strategies and also self-advocacy. Okay, so we're going to start with reflection, especially as graduation inches towards us. It's only a few months away. We want to start thinking about what kind of job and what kind of career we want to have, right? We want to start thinking about the location of our potential job. We want to think about the schedule, the benefits that we would like to have. We also want to think about writing it down, right? So it's one thing to reflect and think about all these things that you want in a job, but it becomes more real and it becomes more tangible when you write it down. So reflection can come in many ways. You can write it down on a piece of paper. You can write it down on a spreadsheet. Maybe it looks like a vision board, but start thinking about and brainstorming things and attributes that you want in your future career. At the same time, I want you to start thinking about your support systems. Finding a job is a job in itself, and sometimes it could be frustrating. So we want to make sure that you have the systems in place that you can lean on during this process. So that may include your mentors, your peers, your friends, faculty, staff, family, and also online resources such as Handshake, LinkedIn, and Glassdoor. Continuing with networking, you always want to keep the ball in your court. So what does networking look like? It can look like cold call and emailing. Networking can look like having informational interviews, attending informational sessions. Maybe you're a part and a member of a professional association. Being an active member and attending meetings and their events is a good way to network. Over here on your right is a template of what a networking email might look like. So if you look to the right, it says, "Hi, my name is Mighty Lion. I am a graduating MPH student from Charles R. Drew University of Medicine and Science." Something along the lines of, "My program director, Dr. Islam, shared some information about your organization and would love to learn more. I am available the following dates and times via Zoom and can provide additional options if needed. Look forward to hearing from you soon," and then you're closing, right? And make sure when you send an email like this for an informational interview that you include a list of a few dates and times you're available. Don't just include one or two, because as you know, people can be very busy, but maybe include 5 to 6 different dates that month that you would be available for a session. Now I want to talk about online networking. Of course, we have LinkedIn, we have Indeed, we have Monster, but we also have Handshake. For those folks who don't know what Handshake is our online platform that our institution uses to connect you to employers and to employment opportunities. The great thing about Handshake is that it's not only a place where you can submit your resume and your cover letters and apply for employment, but it gives you the opportunity to connect and message employers if you wanted to learn more. For those folks who don't have a Handshake account, please, 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 sometime this week or whenever you have time, please reach out to me so that we can both set up your Handshake account. It's going to be a key component to you possibly finding your dream job. All right, so aside from online networking, there's also in-person networking. One event that we have coming up here at CDU is our career fair. So if you look over to the right, we have a save the date flyer. Our career fair is scheduled to be on Thursday, April 20th from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. And that's going to be located here in the Student Center Lounge. Okay, and over to the left, we have a list of the confirmed employers, and then we have more who are looking to join us as well. So we hope you can save the date, come dressed, bring your resume, and that way you can exchange and network with the employers who are coming. Do we have any questions at this point? No? All right.
I have
All
a
right.
question for you, Allison. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, since many of our students are working adults, and sometimes they can't make morning fairs, is it possible to have evening fairs for, especially for our MPH students, or maybe online if they, in the evening? I don't know. Is it something, maybe something you can look into?
Yeah, absolutely. That might be something we can explore for our future fairs. What is the best day of the week and time that would be suitable for the public health students?
Usually it's Monday. Mondays they don't have classes. I mean the MPH. The BSPH do have classes during the day. But Monday evenings, that's why we're having it tonight, the career workshop, is usually left for workshops, fairs, seminars. So Monday evenings would be best.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. I will definitely explore options to have maybe a career fair later in the evening, or like you said, maybe a virtual one.
Yeah, thank
But
you.
I will be noting that down. Thank you. All right, so we're gonna move on to resume. So what is a resume? A resume is a formal document that applicants use to summarize your experience, your background, your skills, and your qualifications. This document is going to be a snapshot and the very first impression that a potential employer has of you. So of course you want to make it good, because like I tell folks, you never have a second chance at a first impression. So this document, this resume, it's used to apply to jobs, employment, internship opportunities, scholarships, and different educational programs. On this slide, we're going to go over the resume versus a CV. A CV stands for curriculum vitae. A lot of folks like to interchange these two terms and use it interchangeably, but they're two very different documents. So on the left, we have your resume. Your resume is a concise snapshot of your qualifications and your achievements. It's typically 1 page in length for entry level, but can be 2 pages if needed. And it's tailored to specific positions. Over to the right, you have your CV. CV is Latin for course of life, and it's going to be a more extensive and detailed account of your academic history. It's typically multiple pages. It's as long as you need it to be, and it's used in academia. So for graduate school, for research, for fellowship positions. If you go to Europe, in Europe, they use resume and CV interchangeably. So CV would be the same as our resume here in the US. Moving on to the types of resumes. The most common one is here on the left. It's called the reverse chronological resume, and that's the resume that we're going to be focused on today. It focuses heavily on your work history. Then we have the functional resume, which focuses heavily on your skills rather than work history. And then you're going to have a combination. All right, this next slide here is going to show you the standard categories of a resume and optional categories. Over on your left, you're going to see the header, which is going to include your name and some personal information. It's going to include your education as well as your experience. If you look over to the right, you're going to see it says optional categories. Whatever you put under your experience and whatever optional categories you include in your resume is what is going to make you stand out and make you unique. So these optional categories include an objective or professional summary, licensures or certifications, your skills, mentioning if you held a leadership position in an organization or maybe at your institution. Maybe you're an active member of a professional affiliation, relevant coursework. Maybe you're an active member and you serve your community, research and awards. Okay, here we have the differences between an objective and professional summary. Similar to the resume and to the CV, a lot of folks like to use it interchangeably, but there are a few differences. So if you look over to the left, you'll have your objective. Your objective is going to be a brief statement and it communicates your goals, the type of job or industry you want to work in. And this is best used for when your skills and your experiences do not really make the job objective clear. If you look over to the right, you'll see professional summary. It's also a short description of your qualifications and why you're a good fit. And this one is best used for individuals with more experience. So I'm going to stop here. Do we have any questions thus far? Okay. Okay, so here we have a sample resume. Here I'm highlighting the header. Your header is going to have your name. It's going to have your contact information. So it's going to have your address or the city that you live in. It's going to have your phone number. It's going to have your email, and you may also include your LinkedIn. For your email, you want to make sure that you're using a professional email. We don't want to be using sparklyprincess123@gmail.com. We want to keep it professional and separate from our personal email. That way it doesn't get lost in all of the spam and junk mail that we have. You may use your cdu.edu email. However, please keep in mind that once you graduate, eventually after a certain amount of time, your email account will be deactivated. So make sure you have a professional one already made. Next, we have an objective or a summary. This is going to be your short elevator pitch. It's going to be a brief summary of your goals, and it communicates your value to the employer. We're not looking to have a paragraph or essay in this section. It is really only a few sentences long. Then we're going to have your education. You are going to list your highest degree first. So please include the school name, the degree you've obtained or will obtain, and the graduation date or expected graduation date if you haven't yet graduated. Also optional, you may include your GPA, relevant coursework, and any honors that you have. I also want to note that as you progress in your career, you're going to start dropping your education from your resume. And so an example of that is your high school education. The reason being is that in order to be in this program and even to graduate, it is implied that you've already went to high school. So you can go ahead and drop that from your resume. Next section that you're going to have is your professional experience. You're going to list your most recent job or relevant experience first. You're going to want to include your work name and location, the position that you held, your start and end dates, and you're going to want to have bullet points with your accomplishments. Now, I've seen resumes with paragraphs instead of bullet points. Your resume can really look however you want it to. However, a lot of folks opt for bullet points because it's easier to read. And studies show that hiring managers and folks in HR only look at a resume for less than 30 seconds. Okay, so you definitely want to keep that in mind. We don't want to overwhelm your reader with large blocks of text. All right, here in your professional experience, you're going to want to include your paid or even unpaid experiences if it is relevant to the position that you're applying to. We want to use strong action statements to describe your accomplishments. We want to use meaningful and effective language. And you want to make sure the tense that you use for your verbs stay consistent. So if you are writing about an experience that happened in the past, you want to make sure that your verbs are also in the past. If this work experience is in the present and you are currently working there, the accomplishments that you describe are going to have to be in the present tense. So make sure that we're very clear and make sure that we're very consistent throughout your resume. Action verbs to use in a resume. I mentioned that we want our language to be clear and we want them to be effective, right? So one thing I would like for you all to do is while you're creating your resume, go on Google and search up action verbs, resume, or resume action verbs, and you're going to get a list of images and a list of website that gives you synonyms for a certain action word. So for example, if you want to say that you've improved something, instead of saying you improve something, look for a synonym, a stronger synonym that demonstrates that same accomplishment. So some examples for improve something is revamped, strengthened, replaced, modified. It says the same thing, but it gives more emphasis and it gives your reader stronger language. All right, moving on to creating effective action statements. Like I said, we want to make sure your statements are strong and that they demonstrate impact. We're highlighting accomplishments. We're not simply listing a list of responsibilities. That's what a job description is for. We want to make sure that you're avoiding personal pronouns. So I, my, me. And also we want to quantify your accomplishments when you can. Now, quantifying your accomplishments, you won't be able to do this for every single bullet point. But when you can, it may look something like this. So if you look at the bottom, we have a bullet point. And let's say your one of your accomplishments was that you updated the website. So instead of saying you updated the website or you created the website, you can say revamped the website and Instagram page, achieving a 50% increase in social media impressions. Right? So this statement gives you a lot more. Right? What did you do? You revamped. What did you revamp? The website and the Instagram page. And what was the result of that? Right? This person achieved a 50% increase in social media impressions. This statement says a lot more than just revamped website. Oh, sorry, y'all. I apologize, bear with me. There we go. So to continue building action statements, the formula that you can keep in mind is the CAR method. So what is the CAR method? The C in CAR stands for challenge, and this is going to be your action verb. The A is going to stand for action, what and how you did something. And R is result. It's going to explain why or what the outcome was of that action. So just another example, you helped kids with math, right? Not very strong, very plain. So a way to reword this is tutored 3 middle school students with customized math problems, which improve content comprehension. We have your challenge. Your challenge action verb is tutored. What and how you did something is you tutored the 3 middle school students with customized math problems. And what did that result in? It improved content comprehension. And so at the bottom, you have your little formula. You have your action verb plus how and what you accomplished and the result of that. Do we have any questions thus far? Okay, moving on. Moving on to skills. So at the bottom, you see a skills section. In your skills section, you may list any skills that are relevant to the position that you are applying to. If you look here, if you are bilingual, please mention that you are bilingual and the languages that you can speak, read, or write in. It is a very valuable skill. If you have any hard or soft skills that are relevant and needed in the position that you're applying for, please include it. If you have any specialized skill in the industry that you're applying, to, please also include that. Like I said, adding more of the optional categories on the right section of that chart will make you a more stronger and valuable candidate. And here I have the slide again of the standard and optional categories to remind you of the different categories. And if they pertain to you, if you have any skill or experience in any of the optional categories, please, please, please consider adding it to your resume. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is ATS. ATS stands for Applicant Tracking System. For folks who don't know, this is a resume scanning software. It's used by recruiters, large and small companies during the hiring process to collect, sort, scan, and rank the job applications they receive for their positions. So for example, let's say you have a large organization like Kaiser. Kaiser is very large and they receive hundreds, if not thousands of applicants on a monthly and yearly basis. Sometimes there's just no way that your resume is going to fall in front of the eyes of a hiring manager. So a lot of these companies, they'll incorporate this system, this software to sort through the resumes that are submitted. Well, if your resume is going to be submitted and sorted and scanned by a software, we want to make sure that you have the best chances of getting your resume in front of the eyes of a hiring manager. So let's talk about some ways to make your resume ATS friendly. Number one, it's going to avoid clip art, graphics, and charts. A lot of the times, including too much imagery and too much graphics will not allow the software to parse and sort that information. Number 2, we want to avoid placing information in the headers or footers. Make sure you leave adequate space on your borders. Number 3, we want to use keyword optimization. So what does that mean? We want to make sure that your resume is linked to the job description. So what I mean is you're going to want to study the job description of the position that you're applying for. If in the job description it says, for example, that they want somebody who is CPR certified, if you are CPR certified, make sure that's included in your resume. That way, when it goes through the software, it'll say CPR certified, and it'll give you a check mark, because that is one area in which you meet the qualifications and constraints that the software is looking for. Number 4, I recommend for folks to use the month and year formats for dates. So the example is July 2023, just type it all out instead of using 07/23 or 07/2023. A lot of folks aren't consistent in the way they format their dates, and it will confuse the software when it comes to sorting and scanning your resume. Right, so we want to make sure that you get the best chance at bumping your resume up to the top. All right, do we have any questions thus far about ATS?
What did ATS stand for? I think I missed that.
Yep, we can go right back, no worries. So applicant tracking system.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions? Okay. All right, so the slide, it says tailor your resume, right? Like I mentioned, you want to study the job listings you are applying to. Identify the desired qualifications and make sure that you are their ideal and perfect candidate. Right? If you are reading a job description and you see some qualifications that you are not fully qualified for, I would rethink applying to that job just yet. Okay, you don't want to waste the recruiter's time, but you also don't want to waste your time. Number 3, incorporate certain keywords or wording where it is appropriate. That way, if your resume goes through ATS, you get good chances at getting your resume bumped up. And number 4, determine what categories and what sections you want to include in your resume. And when we say tailor your resume might look very different for each position that you apply to. Right? During this process, during the job search process, you might have 10, 20 resumes. Right? And if you have 10 or 20 resumes, I want you to make sure that you're very organized. Right? If you turn in one resume into Kaiser or the LA County, make sure you save it Kaiser, Kaiser resume LA County, or each place that you're applying to. That way, if you get an interview and it's time for you to take that copy of your resume to your interview, you're taking the right one. All right, we're going to go over some formatting guidelines. Number 1, avoid templates. And I only say that because I don't know if you've ever experienced opening a template and having a hard time formatting your resume because it has so many constraints. So what I like to do is I like to search on Google for resume templates. I pick one for inspiration. I use it as a guide and I recreate it on a Word document. Number 2, be sure to use standard fonts. I know it might be a little bit plain Jane, but we want to stay away from using anything fancy. So I'm talking Times New Roman, Arial, Calibri, Helvetica, standard, nice, and just clear fonts. Number 3, stay within a page if possible. I know a page, it's only a small amount of space. If you need 2 pages, that's okay. Remember to list your experiences in reverse chronological order. 5, do not include a headshot unless requested. You do not want to give your hiring manager and give them any biases, right? We don't want to include a photo, and a lot of the times if a hiring manager sees your photo in a stack of resumes, they might not even look at it because they already know what you look like and they don't want to discriminate. So it puts you and it also puts them in a hard position. So just please don't do it. Number 6, remember to keep it clean and consistent. Here we have examples of 2 resumes, and although arguably they might be nice looking resumes, this is not the vibe or the look or the type of resumes that we want to be submitting. It would be great if I could have a few folks kind of chime in and explain why we wouldn't want to turn in these resumes.
I can chime in. The backgrounds of both of them are not, they're hard on the eyes and also not professional.
Yeah, absolutely. The background of these resumes are very colorful. Like you said, they're not professional. There's a lot of graphics on it, right? We have a lot of ponies, there's a lot of color. It's kind of distracting for your reader. Right, and then over to the right, we see Dwight's resume. He has his headshot. We see camo. We see a lot of art. We see fancy fonts. So although these resumes might be nicely formatted, please, 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 let's stay away from this look. And instead, we want to go for a nice clean look. We have the header with your basic information, name, address, email, phone number, LinkedIn. If you look at the format, it's very consistent. It's very clean. We have education, we have experience, and we have bullet points that follow the CAR formula. Right, and just to review, CAR stands for challenge, action, and result. Your challenge is going to be your action verb. The action is going to be what and how you did something, and the R is going to be the result. What was the outcome of that action? Do we have any questions thus far?
I have a quick question. I see that you put like Lakewood, California for like the persons. Is that, can you see that being like a negative thing if like you're applying for a job that's maybe like 15 miles away from where you live or 20 miles, like, or is that just general information? Just like it's nice to at least include that.
Yeah, I don't see it as a negative. I think it's nice to include these days. You could have candidates really apply from anywhere in the nation and anywhere in the world. So if maybe an employer is looking for somebody like in the immediate location, or maybe if they're looking for somebody to relocate, it would be a nice piece of information for them to know.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you. All right, if we have no other questions, we're going to keep going. All right, tips and reminders. Number 1 would be to create a master resume. This master resume is going to include all of your skills, all of your work experience, all of the activities, the volunteer service, the leadership positions that you've held. It's going to be, it doesn't matter how long or how many pages it's going to be, but it's nice to have one place to go to refer to when you start tailoring your resume. Okay, so keep a master resume, and when it comes time to applying to positions and employment and opportunities, take out that master resume and start copying and pasting and formatting it on another document. It makes it really easy. Okay, so create that master resume. Number 2, when you start looking for employment, whether it's on Handshake or Indeed or LinkedIn, study the job listings. Make sure that who you are aligns with the person or the candidate that they're looking for. Study the listings, make sure you read through it, and make sure you pick out the language and key phrases or key wordings that they're looking for in a candidate. Number 3, it's going to be to tailor your resume for each position. You might have 10 or 20 different resumes, and that's okay. Make sure that you're organized. And on the next slide, I'll show you an easy way you might want to organize where you've applied to. Number 4 is proofread and edit. We want to make sure that your resume, your grammar, your spelling, your punctuation is immaculate. Because like I said, this is the first impression that a potential employer is going to have of you. Okay, so sometimes, when we're looking at our own work, when we're looking at our own document for too long, we are unable to catch our own mistakes. Right, so please reach out to friends, to peers, to your professors. Reach out to me if you need another pair of eyes to look over your resumes. That way we can catch everything and make it as perfect as possible. Number 5, this tip is to be honest. We don't want to bend or stretch the truth on your resume. A lot of the time, in one way or the other, the piece of information that you have on there. All right, and then number 6 is to stay organized. Over on this next slide, it's just a sample spreadsheet of something that you might want to utilize. If you look at the columns at the top, you're gonna input the date you applied to, the company name, the job title, who the contact person is, and you can include notes for if you begin the interview process with that company or organization. You don't have to use this, but I do recommend using something like this. That way you don't confuse yourself and you don't misplace your resumes and confuse who you've applied to and what you've submitted for each. Okay, now that we've completed the resume portion, we're going to do a cover letter review. So here you have a template of a cover letter. The header that you're going to use is going to be the same as your resume. The format here we have is business style. So let's look at the document. Up at the top left, you're going to include the date. You're going to include 4 spaces after that. And then you're going to include the contact information of the organization that you are applying to. You're going to start with the name of the contact person. You're going to include their title. You're going to include the organization name and the address. Okay, so for this part right there, for the name of contact person, you're gonna want to do a little bit of research, right? You're gonna want to do research and kind of dig deep to find out who you are applying to. You want to find the name of that hiring manager, the name of that director, that recruiter, right? If you can't find the name of that person or the contact person, over here where it says dear, where it says your salutations, you're going to put dear hiring manager or perhaps the department representative or the position that they have. But please, please, please do your due diligence into finding who that contact person is. All right, so if you look below, you're going to have your intro paragraph, and this is going to be your hook. You want to make sure the language and strategically make your intro paragraph really interesting and just not boring, right? We want to include the name of the job for which you are applying to and how you learned about it. You want to mention the name of the referred you, if any, and you also want to state your full degree and the college that you obtained the degree from, right? As much as you can, make the introduction interesting. After your intro, you're going to have your body paragraph. This is going to be the meat and potatoes of the whole document. In this section, you're going to want to acknowledge the skills required by the position. So be sure that you've studied that job listing and you know what they're looking for. You want to state the skills that you have and the skills that you will bring to the position that are similar to the skills that they're looking for. And to supplement that, you're going to want to give examples of said skills, whether it's through your internships, your professional experience, community service, or maybe research. Right? This is the area in which you can make yourself stand out and be a competitive candidate. Okay, so that's going to be your body paragraph. And then you're going to have a closing paragraph, and this is going to be your call to action. Okay, you want to refer to any documents that you've also submitted to supplement the cover letter. So it might be your resume or a portfolio, or maybe they ask for writing samples, depending on what position you apply to. In the same paragraph, you want to state that you're available for an interview at their convenience. And you may also include your contact information in this paragraph as well, your email and your phone number. Then you want to end with your closing. It's going to say something like sincerely, or there are other options like respectfully, in anticipation, comma, and then your name. If you are sending this cover letter, if you are mailing it via USPS, make sure you sign it. If not, you can amen. All right, and so this cover letter is also going to be tailored for each position. Okay, so also be organized with your cover letters and where the folders that you save your cover letters and your resumes, right? And I know for a lot of folks, the tailoring part is the most tedious part of the job process, but please put effort into it, take the time to do it. And you'll thank yourself in the long run, because it does make you stand out. It makes you a stronger applicant, and it makes you unique. All right, so that was the end of going over networking, the resume, and the cover letter. Do we have any questions about any of the sections that we just went over? Okay, if there are no questions, we are going to go ahead and move on to interviewing strategies and tips. So you've created your resume, you've created your cover letter, and you got called in for that interview, right? What do we do now? This is going to be the overview. We're going to go over purpose and goals, what to do before, during, after the interview, and tips and reminders. Okay, so what's the purpose and goal of an interview, right? The purpose and goal is to sell yourself. Okay, you want to make sure that you give a good impression. Like I said earlier, you never have a second chance at that first impression. You want to be able to communicate your skills, your abilities, your strengths. You want to communicate why you'd make a great hire and also demonstrate why you're the best candidate. I think a lot of the times, folks struggle with the interviewing part, and I find that it's because they are unsure of who they are. And the issue is when you're unsure of who you are, and when you're unsure of your strengths and your abilities and your skills, you're unable to communicate that to a potential employer. So this is also an area where each of you can do a lot of reflecting, right? Make a list of everything that's great about yourself. Make a list of all the skills that you possess, all of the strengths that you have, and maybe areas in which you can improve upon. Right? Nobody is going to know you better than you, and nobody is going to be able to demonstrate and communicate that better than you. Okay, so you may be the best candidate on paper, but unless you're able to communicate that with words, you might miss out on an opportunity, and I don't want that to be you. So if you ever need help with mock interviewing, if you want to get feedback, please reach out to me. Please reach out to somebody who can help you. I am at your disposal from Monday to Friday. Just send me an email and we can set up a time to go over mock interviews. And I like to tell folks to please come early in your journey. A lot of folks like to come to me the day before an interview, and the issue with that is habits don't change overnight. One of the major issues that I had when I interviewed was filler words. When I interviewed, I remember using words like or like or so, and I would use them repetitively and constantly. The only way I got over that and the only way I improved my interviewing skills was to practice. All right, so before the interview, we want to start with your attire. We want to make sure that you avoid strong scents. We want to avoid an unkempt appearance. Please shower. And if you look at the fourth picture to the right, please no casual clothing. We want to leave the jeans, we want to leave the heels, the clubbing dresses at home. So that's going to be a no. All right, we want to make sure that we're wearing professional clothing. Maybe it's a suit, tie, dress shirt, and shoes, or a blouse, trousers, and a skirt, and nice heels or nice flat. Please make sure you iron or steam your garments. Don't leave any wrinkles on your shirts, or don't leave any wrinkles on your trousers. And number 4, please wear the correct size. We definitely want you to be confident, and when you're not comfortable, you're not confident. And I've worn clothes that are way too tight and that are way too big, and it definitely lessens that confidence level that you have when you're not feeling good, or you're not feeling well. I know sometimes clothing, especially professional clothing, can be really expensive, but I want to offer some alternatives and some options for inexpensive clothing. I want to highlight that right now, Career Services is partnering up with JCPenney for their Suit Up event. So from now until the end of April, they're giving all of our staff, students, and faculty an extra 30% off for any of their professional items. So you can refer to that if you want that coupon. I shop at JCPenney. They're very size inclusive and they have a lot of affordable options. In addition to JCPenney, there's Macy's. I know Macy's always sends out coupons. There's Ross, there's Marshalls, there's TJ Maxx, there's Nordstrom Rack. There's also thrift stores. With stores like Ross, Marshall, TJ Maxx, and thrift stores, it's going to require a lot of time and digging, but they have a lot of great items there. And lastly, we do have the CDU Career Closet. We are planning to fully launch our closet this summer. It is not quite ready, but when it is, our students are going to have the opportunity to rent out any professional items that they need. And our closet includes a lot of generous donations from our staff, faculty, and students. Before the interview, you also want to come prepared. What should you bring? Definitely bring a water bottle. You definitely want to stay hydrated and it definitely calms your nerves. You may bring a briefcase or portfolio to include all your documents. You want to bring copies of your resume. You may or may not need them. They may already have it, but just in case, it's always nice to have copies of it. And you may also bring a notebook and pen if you would like to take notes. Virtual interviews. So maybe your interview is not in person, maybe it's virtual, which has become more prevalent, especially since the pandemic. Some tips I want you to remember is to check your internet connection and do a test run ahead of time. You know, there's nothing like coming in last minute and then Zoom or maybe Teams doesn't want to load. Right? Make sure you do that ahead of time. That way you eliminate any technical issues as much as you can, and it reduces you getting nervous and flustered. Number two, you want to choose a place that's free of distraction. Maybe it's your bedroom, maybe it's your living room, but choose a place where there is not outside noise, where maybe the dogs aren't barking, or maybe if there's children in the house. Try to isolate yourself. Number three, be aware of your background or choose an appropriate backdrop. Yeah, we don't want your dirty room to be highlighted in your background. So if you do not have an appropriate natural background at home, make sure you choose an appropriate virtual backdrop. And the last one is going to be to log in at least 15 minutes early. That way you can plan for maybe unforeseen technical difficulties if possible. And with technologies, technical difficulties might arise and that might be out of your control on both sides of the party, right? On your side and the interviewer side. So make sure you have a lot of grace for your interviewer and also yourself. Then we're going to want to eliminate distractions. So remember to silence or power down your phone and to leave behind other electronics in case they ring. There's nothing worse than having your cell phone ring during an interview, which has happened to me. And although my interviewer was very gracious and they didn't mind, it made me a lot more nervous and it made me flustered in the moment and I couldn't get my thoughts together. So yeah, if possible, silence your phone and just keep it away from you for that short amount of time. All right, so making a good impression during the interview. You want to be very aware and be very intentional of your body language. So what do we mean? Number one, you want to maintain good eye contact with your interviewer or interviewers. I know sometimes it can feel a little bit silly or it can feel a little bit weird to stare into somebody's eyes. But one trick that I like to use is I look at the top of their forehead and it looks like you're looking at their eyes. So if you want to utilize that trick, you may. Number two, you want to speak clearly and loud enough. You don't want to mumble, and you also don't want to talk too fast. Number three, you want to be sure that you smile, be happy, be personable, be you. And number four, you want to be confident and you want to be positive. One of the TED Talks that I've watched that really changed the way that I do interviews is the one on communication and body language during an interview, right? So what they said is folks who come into the interview with open body language and folks who did power poses right before the interview ended up and measured to be more confident and higher risk takers during their interview compared to folks who maybe had smaller body language and was hunched and closed off. Okay, so if that's another tip or strategy you'd like to utilize, I recommend maybe going to the restroom prior to the interview and standing with your hands on your hips with your chest out and telling yourself positive affirmations, right? I am great. I can do this, right? Whatever works for you. But that has been a really, really big one for me. All right, so during the interview, you're going to be asked a lot of questions. They're going to refer to your resume and get to know you a little bit more. These are the 4 types of questions that you might come across. You're going to have the general questions, behavioral, situational, and also brain teasers. On this slide, you see some examples under general information. So what kind of questions are these? It's tell me about yourself. Why are you applying to this position? And basically the basic information of your professional and personal background. If you look over to the right, you're going to see behavioral questions. Now, behavioral and situational questions are very similar, but behavioral questions are focused on the present and past experiences. So, for example, the question might start with, share a time when, ... What's a difficult ... One of the common questions might be, please describe a time in which you have experienced conflict with a peer and describe how you've overcome that issue. So that's an example of a behavioral question. And then you have situational, which is more focused on the future, right? So typically the questions start with, how would you ... What would you do if ... And then you're going to have brain teasers, right? These are the more quirky questions, less used, but don't be surprised if you're asked something like this. Some examples are name your top 3 animals and 1 word to describe them. Number 2, how would you make a PB&J sandwich? And so although these questions are very quirky, sometimes students ask, well, Allison, like, why would they ask that? And the answer is most likely they want to see how well you communicate, right? So how would you make a PB&J sandwich, right? Maybe they want to see, are you able to describe the instructions on how to do something? And maybe that's a key and valuable skill to have for that position. All right, and it also gives your interviewer an insight to how you think, how you communicate, and how you come to an answer. There's not necessarily a right or wrong answer. All right, do we have any questions thus far? Okay.
I had a quick question. Will you be going over like group interviews?
Yeah, so group interviews could be a possibility. We call that a panel interview. So you may have a panel interview in person. You may have a panel interview virtually, and you will treat it like any other interview. However, you're going to have a larger audience, right? And so although that might be a little bit, you might get a little bit anxious, it might feel a little bit scarier. Don't fret. Make sure you take a deep breath in and out. And during a panel interview, I like to give attention to the person who's talking with me directly, but also acknowledging the rest of your panel interviewers.
And how
Okay.
would you describe like in group interviews when it's multiple, like a group of us being interviewed together?
Absolutely, that's a great question. So there are panel interviews, and then there are also going to be group interviews where it might be you and one or two or three other candidates in the same room. And so typically, there's one or two ways this could go. Your interviewer may ask you a question directly, or it could be open floor and the interviewer may ask the whole group a question. And in that situation, it is up to you to stop, to formulate your answer, and to chime in when you can. Does that answer the question, Jennifer?
Yeah, I was just asking because I've been in those situations where it feels weird because you feel like all of us are applying for the same position. And so you want to focus on your own strengths, and you also want to like be very collaborative and teamworkish, but you're all applying for the same position. So just the dynamics of stepping up to get time to speak, but also to not seem too eager to speak and not allow other people to share out as well. So it was just like that balance of it all. And those were really interesting experiences when I've been interviewed in that way. But definitely appreciate having had those experiences.
No, absolutely. And yeah, I've been to a couple of group interviews, and it is very different, right? You're in a room with maybe one, two, or three other candidates who want that same position as you. So there is that factor that kind of it feels like the stakes are a lot more raised, but definitely like you said, you have to focus on yourself, focus on formulating your answers. Don't feel during an interview that you have to answer right away. And at the same token, don't take too long, right? So there is that balance, but if you need to take a few seconds to stop, to gather your thoughts and what you need to say, if you need to stop for a few seconds to breathe in and out to kind of calm your nerves, please take that, right? Please take that time for yourself. And at the end of the day, you want to be you, right? You want to be authentically you. Right. And so that's going to be maybe another area in which you want to practice in. right? If you want to practice group interviewing, maybe you can get some peers or some family members, some friends, and do a simulation, right? And it's one of those things where it's the more you practice, the more interviews that you go through and the more interviews that you experience, the better that you will get at it. All right, I want to highlight one of the questions, right? And it's a question, it's also a statement, but it's very elusive, right? Because it's so simple, but it stumps a lot of people. And it's the statement or question, tell me about yourself, right? And typically, this is what a potential employer or interviewer is asking you, like right when you sit down. Right, so let's just break it down for a moment. You are going to answer, tell me about yourself, and it's going to be 1 to 3 minutes. This is going to be a summary of yourself, and it's going to be insight into who you are as a person. We don't necessarily want to summarize our resume and CV because they already have that document, they have that information. Right? But if there are relevant experiences, characteristics, attributes about yourself that you would want somebody to know, that are unique, you should pick those out and present it in a cohesive way where you're not going too much into personal information, but you're also not rambling and listing everything on your resume. This is a small chance to take control of your narrative, right? And this might be tough for some folks. And so that's why you really want to do a reflection when it comes to creating your elevator pitch, right? Who are you? What about you do you want to let somebody who's maybe never met you, never seen you, doesn't know anything about you, what would you want them to know? Right? So this is the reflection portion specifically for that question. Right? And there are going to be a lot of common questions, commonly asked questions during an interview. I recommend that everybody go through those questions and start reflecting and connecting those questions and answers with your experiences. And even though it sounds cliche, but during an interview, you really want to be yourself. You want to treat it like a normal conversation. A lot of times in the past, students come to me and they want to write a script, right? They want to write a script of what to say to this question, to this question, to this question. And while, yes, you need to have a good idea of what you would respond to maybe commonly asked questions, there's just no possible way to memorize an answer for every single question that could be asked of you, right? It's just not feasible. But as long as you know who you are, what strengths you bring, what skills you have, and you know what's on your resume and you know the ins and outs, you'll be able to pick and identify experiences or instances that are pertinent or relevant to the question that they're asking you. At the end of your interview, please, please, please make sure you have answers to ask your interviewer, right? Why? This shows your interviewer that you care. It shows them that you're interested, right? So no matter what interview you go to, please have a list of questions in mind. Here are just a few sample questions. You can ask them, what are the characteristics or abilities a successful employee here has? Maybe you can ask them, what are the metrics used to measure success in that position? Or perhaps you want to know what are the next steps in the interviewing process. Please remember that while your interviewer or group of interviewers are evaluating you on whether you're a good fit for their company, you in turn are also evaluating them on whether they're a good fit for you. So please remember that. This job search process, it goes both ways. All right, I want to touch on self-advocacy for a bit. Here on your left, you have some of the pros and cons of salary and hourly pay. Right, so some of the pros of salary pay, you're going to have a consistent paycheck and you're going to expect the same amount every single time. You have paid time off and sick days. You might be eligible for better tiered benefits, and you might have more career advancement opportunities. Some of the cons of salary pay is you might have to work more hours than scheduled. You might have to stay longer, maybe a day or two, or maybe work an extra day in the week. You have reduced availability for other jobs because of the time commitment, and also potentially less autonomy over holidays and your overtime. Right, so that's salary pay. Over to the right, you have hourly pay. Some of the pros, you are compensated for your overtime. If you work on holidays, you get paid time and a half. You have the ability to structure your schedule and perhaps dedicate time to other interests. And then if you look over to the bottom, you see your cons, right? It's your position as an hourly employee is more vulnerable to economic changes. Your pay is not consistent and you might have fewer benefits. So when all of you progress in your career and all of you get jobs, it is my hope that everybody has a job in a healthy work environment, but sometimes that's not the case. But let's go over what a healthy work environment looks like. Boundaries. There are boundaries between you and your coworkers and you and your managers and supervisors, right? You don't want to be in an environment where maybe it's out of office hours, 10 p.m. at night, and you're still doing work or you're still talking to your supervisor. You want to make sure that you can openly communicate with your colleagues and your supervisor. You want to make sure there's work-life balance, right? This is your job, but you don't have to eat, breathe, and sleep it, right? Because you have a life outside of it, right? And you want to make sure that you're able to dedicate and balance that time between work and life. And it is my hope that everybody can work at a place where they put their people over profit, right? But that's not always the case. And myself included, I've had my fair share of toxic work environments, and I know that could be tough. Right? Maybe or maybe you've already experienced it, or maybe you're going through it right now, right? So I just want to leave you with a few tips if you're in this situation. Number one, I want you to seek community, right? Seek support where you can. Maybe it's another coworker at that place, right? Maybe it's family who can support you. Maybe it's your therapist. Number two, documentation. Please keep documentation of any altercations, any situations, any exchanges that you have with somebody at your workplace. Document it in a journal, document it on a document, the date, the time, a summary of what happened. Refer to your employee manual for the processes that you can take to either file a complaint or maybe reach out to HR. That way you know what the chain of command is, right? If you have an issue, maybe it's go to your direct supervisor. If you're unable to do that for whatever reason, or maybe your issue is with that direct supervisor, maybe you can go higher up in that chain, right? But we want to take steps to make sure that our mental health is okay, right? And I understand that at the same time, navigating a toxic work environment sometimes is a privilege, right? Because sometimes we're going to have to go out and make that decision to leave and find another job. But maybe you can't because you need to pay bills, right? Maybe you can't because you can't afford, to just up and leave. So we want to be very strategic and find support when we can. All right, and this is also another area in which if you would like to talk about it, please reach out to somebody, please reach out to me, and we can go over some strategies on what to do if you're in this situation and you're looking to make a movement out of it. All right, and finally, I want to leave you with a resource page. Here on your left, I have a list of professional affiliations for public health. Some of y'all might be members already. If not, here are some links that you can look into. This is a way for you to network. This is a way for you to meet other folks in the community and possibly link and connect with other people who might have opportunities for you in the future when you graduate. And up to the right, you have a short list of public health job boards. This includes the HRSA Health Workforce Connector, publichealthjobs.com, usajobs.gov, and higher ed jobs. All right, and that's going to conclude our workshop and presentation for today. I'm going to open the floor for any questions you have regarding any section of today's workshop.
This is a good time to ask Allison anything you need.
And if maybe you don't have a question right now and a question arises later, please don't be afraid to reach out to me for a one-on-one advising session. This session can be in person or it can be virtually. I know a lot of you have work during the day, so let me know ahead of time, or maybe you're only available at 6 or maybe 7 p.m. Let me know ahead of time and I can work with you so that we can meet at a time that's best for you. Okay, and like I said, we have Career Fair coming up on April 20th. I hope you all can make it. It's here in the Student Center lounge from 11:30 to 1:30 p.m. For the future, I'm going to be looking at options that more align with your schedules.
Thank you, Allison. This was actually great. I've actually learned some stuff here. I'm like, wow, I wish I had this workshop when I applied for this job. So this is actually very great. I see Jennifer smiling too.
I agree. This was really extremely thorough. So many areas that I didn't expect for you to cover. And I think everyone is sharing praises in the chat that it was really extremely helpful. So thank you. I know, me too, Dr. So I'm like, while I'm working, I'm like, wow, I have so much to learn.
I know. Yeah, it's like, whoa, okay. And those brain teaser questions, by the way, I was asked that when I applied for the job at Drew.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was like, why are they even asking that? But, it is actually good to be aware of these things. It's great. Thank you, Alison.
Oh, thank you all for having me. I appreciate it. Dr. Islam, I'm going to go ahead and send you just that link to Handshake in case nobody is connected yet. If you could please share it with all the students, that would be great.
Yes.
If there are folks on here that are not connected to Handshake, or maybe you don't know what Handshake is, please reach out to me so that we can troubleshoot and create your account together. And yeah, I'm here to go over anything career related, anything regarding professional development. So hope to see y'all soon.
Thank you so much, Allison. If nobody has any questions, I guess I will let you go. No questions.